Hey, thank you for listening to the Vegan Ambition podcast. I'm here to let you know that you can visit us on our website at theveganambition.com or on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. We post new content every single day. And now, time for the podcast. Hey, I'm Ruji, and today we're joined with...
Yo, Ben.
And I'm Ruji. Welcome to the Vegan Ambition podcast number 10. Today's main question is, what do you see as a perfect world in terms of food? But before we start, I'd like to thank today's sponsors. I'd like to thank Lemons, Bell Peppers, and of course, Panko Breadcrumbs. This podcast is a tool to help vegans, vegetarians, and anyone else who's interested in the vegan lifestyle. On this podcast, we will have a different guest every week, and we're going to discuss a topic on veganism, and we will debate different viewpoints. The Vegan Ambition is a no-pressure zone and a no-hostility zone. We don't pressure our guests, but are simply here to discuss different viewpoints. I hope you'll join us on this journey, and education is our biggest goal here. If you don't know me already, I'm Ruji, and I've been vegan for over a year now. I'm not a perfect vegan, but I'm trying to become one. Hopefully you can join me on this journey and learn something new in the process. And this is Ben, your non-vegan, who I hope will be interested in learning a bit more about the vegan lifestyle today.
Yes, I'm also not a perfect vegan.
I'd like to hear about your diet, Ben. Can you tell me a bit about it?
Man, I eat a lot of very bad food. I don't really take my diet very seriously.
You used to eat a lot of chicken fingers.
I still eat a lot of chicken fingers.
Okay.
I eat a lot of pizza, yogurt, chocolate. I love meat. I eat a lot of steak and chicken and all sorts of things. So yeah.
Okay. Now, we had a person on the podcast a couple weeks ago who was a big meat eater as well.
Yeah.
But he mostly kind of ate it for his health, for his working out.
Right.
You just kind of eat it because you...
Yeah, I've never really cared too much about my diet. And so, I just sort of ate whatever was convenient.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think about what I'm eating. I just buy the most convenient and easiest thing to eat. And that's that. I don't have any serious health priorities. I don't have any serious restrictions, nothing like that.
Have you thought about what your diet will be like in the future, in a couple of years? Like, I mean, as we get older, people generally try to eat less out and stuff like that.
It's not something I think about. I think I need a good woman to take care of me and cook me some healthy, delicious food without any effort on my part.
Okay. And what do you know about veganism?
I know what it is. So you restrict yourselves from eating certain things. You can do it for a variety of reasons, whether it's health or moral or whatever. And that's about all I know.
Why do you call it a restriction?
Well, because you are saying that there are things that I will not eat.
Okay, but for me, the way I see it, it's not really a restriction for me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's kind of like, yeah, there's things I don't eat, but because I don't eat those things, I've been able to find a lot of other things that I can eat.
Sure. I mean, it's a restriction in the same sense that any decision you make is a restriction. Say you choose to go to school for photography as opposed to computer programming. You might not see your choice as to study photography as a restriction, but you're being restricted from studying other things.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you wouldn't normally think of it that way, but at least when it comes to diet, I think because pretty much everyone, at least in our society, eats more or less the same kind of way.
Uh-huh.
When you choose to be a vegan, you are sort of straying from that. And that's why I see it as a restriction from sort of the norm.
Now, that's changing a lot, right? So, I mean, vegan diets are on the rise like crazy. And
sure, yeah.
And I mean...
It's very popular.
Do you think...
Trendy.
Yeah, it's trendy, but it's also... But do you think it'll last? Like, what do you think about it?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm curious to hear from you. Like, what are the metrics like? Like, if you took the entire Canadian population,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, how many of them would be vegan?
I think right now in Canada, it's about 1%.
Right. And so even if that 1% is growing and rising, like,
Mm-hmm.
you get where I'm coming from when I'm saying that this is far from the norm.
But the thing with veganism right now is the way that it's going, and although I don't really approve of it, but the way that it's going to more of this like idea of a flexitarian diet.
What does that mean?
And so a flexitarian diet is someone who will consume vegan or vegetarian most of the time.
Right.
And then they will make exclusions for like special occasions or for traveling or for stuff like that. And I mean, again, I don't agree with it, but it's very on the rise right now. And a lot of people I know and people I've spoken to, what they like to do is they like to just supplement, you know, vegan or vegetarian options into their diets on a daily. So they will just, instead of getting like a regular burger at A&W as an example,
Right.
they'll get a
they
vegan
just introduced
burger.
that new.
Yeah, it's sold out completely
Yeah.
immediately as they.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
I actually was a bit more surprised because I mean I've tried that burger.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited. I'm really I haven't tried the A&W one. I've tried it somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'm really excited and happy that it's here, but I was surprised by the demand because usually
I think part of the demand is, you know, people who care about being vegan and being vegetarian. But I think a lot of people are probably interested in something like this burger, you know, purely because it's a novel thing.
Yeah.
It's lab grown meat.
It's
right?
not
That's
lab
what
grown.
it is.
No.
Oh, okay.
So the Beyond Burger is not lab grown. The Beyond Burger is just like like it's just made from vegetables.
Gotcha.
But
it's supposed to replicate a burger.
Yeah, so it's basically as close as possible as they've gone so far.
Gotcha.
And so they kind of replicate the way it grills, the way it smells, the way it tastes, the way it even bleeds a little bit.
Right.
And so, but again, it's not supposed to be like a perfect
replacement. Yeah.
It's supposed to be like, this is close enough and you can eat this. And that's my view of all vegan meats.
Sure. Yeah.
This is close enough that you can supplement it, because like when I have a veggie burger nowadays, I don't even think about the fact that what it tastes like or doesn't taste like. I just think, oh, this is good.
Right.
That's literally all I think about.
Okay, so we were on the topic of flexitarians, who you don't really like for some reason.
It's not that I don't like them. It's that I don't really support the name flexitarian, and I don't really like. I like people eating less meat, but to be like, oh yeah, I'm basically vegetarian. I'm like, well, not exactly.
You kind of have to earn that title
a little bit, yeah. And there's also a difference between like plant-based and vegan,
right?
Which a lot of people don't know. I don't know if you know the difference or not.
No, we can get into it.
Okay, if you want. So plant-based essentially is the main kind of viewpoint from it is that it's for your health.
Okay.
Or for the environment.
Sure.
So animals, as the idea of like, not using any animal products, that doesn't really fall into plant-based. Plant-based is kind of its own sphere, and so you'll see plant-based people, they still sometimes they still buy leather sometimes, they still eat cheese sometimes, stuff like that, where it's
so they're motivated by having like a diet and a lifestyle that is as minimally detrimental to the environment and to their health as possible. Gotcha.
Yeah. But they're not vegan because they'll still eat honey or gelatin or certain things like that, where they don't push themselves to the next step.
Gotcha.
Kind of, which is what I do. I mean, I don't eat honey, I don't eat gelatin. I'm very careful with that kind of stuff.
Okay.
There's some stuff I'm not so good at, but it's hard, and I complain about it.
So what is sort of like your reason for eliminating all animal-based products as part of your diet? Like what is wrong with eating honey or gelatin or this sort of thing?
So, well, gelatin's pretty obvious. Animals need to be killed.
Okay.
Right? Honey is the one that's a little bit more, it's not controversial, but it's slightly like on the fringe kind of veganism, and some people say that it's okay to eat it, some people say it's not. The basis that veganism is built from is the idea that we should not take anything from animals at all. Okay. And whether that is surplus, not surplus, doesn't matter. So there are honey farmers who will only use surplus of honey. So they'll feed their bees properly with the honey that they are supposed to eat.
And only use the extra stuff.
And only use the extra to sell. Yeah. But a vegan generally will look at that and say, well, we're still kind of reproducing these animals when they don't need to be reproduced. We're still, putting, as a really good example, and this is my favorite kind of way to look at bee farms, is you'll take a bee farm and you'll put it in a place where bees exist in the natural environment, and they'll completely destroy the bee environment because they'll just like take over completely. Right. And so you'll actually lose plants that are known to that area and bees that are known to that area.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of not really sustainable or really good in that way, even if you're using surplus.
Okay.
And just generally speaking, I don't use anything because I think that it's very bad. Like I don't condone murder. Like I don't like.
Sure. So fundamentally, like you being a vegan is based on the fact that you view using animals in any manner of ways, whether it's by eating them, like eating the meat of a cow or something, or by using something they produce like the honey.
Yeah. Or
you view
milk.
that as an exploitative and like wrong thing to do.
Yes, from the animal perspective.
Okay.
And I'm a vegan. The vegan.
What do you
most
mean
vegans
from an
are.
animal perspective?
So there's the three perspectives: for your health, for the environment, and for the animals.
Okay.
So vegans, they're the least corrosive to everything.
Right.
So I produce the least amount of environmental impact because a vegan diet reduces your carbon footprint by 50% as a standard.
Okay.
And as well as the fact that just like not consuming it is just helping everything else.
Right.
And then from a health perspective, it's been shown a lot of times that vegan diets are really healthy and they're really good for me. That one I'm actually I care about that less, because like you said, I mean, I'm lazy just like you, and I don't cook a lot, all that kind of stuff. I eat out a lot.
Sure.
Now I am selective of what I eat, and I'm trying to be careful and stuff, but generally speaking, my health is kind of the last viewpoint. And then from the animals, it's just I don't want to kill animals.
Okay. I think that's the most interesting one, and maybe that's the one we should talk about.
Sure.
Because that's sort of like a moral principle, that
Yes.
to use another animal is exploitation and you shouldn't do it.
Yes.
And, I think it's sort of it's a noble idea to sort of look at your own life and say, here are the places where I am exploiting other people or other things.
Yep.
And maybe I should try to minimize this. And so there's a few things I'll say about that. First of all, like me, ignorant meat eater,
Sure.
I don't view eating animals as exploitation.
Okay.
And so maybe that's one thing we can talk about. And second of all, I think even when you have, like, let's assume that you've eliminated most of the exploitation in your life that would come from a non-vegan diet.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what you're contributing to. As far as exploitation goes, half of the shit that you're wearing probably comes from China, where somebody was paid 50 cents an hour to make it,
Sure.
and went home and lived in like a crappy apartment, and here you are like benefiting off of their sweat and hard work.
Yep.
And so I think even on the hierarchy of like which exploitation to eliminate, like I think the fellow human beings in China a little bit more important than like the animal.
Okay, so to the first point, right? And actually a bit to the second point. So the thing that a lot of vegans talk about, and it's this concept called speciesism.
Mm-hmm.
It's the idea that animals are below humans.
Right.
That humans exist in a food chain, that we exist at the top of the food chain.
Okay.
And technology has given that to us. So we are able to kill sharks as an example, or lions,
Sure.
because of technology. We don't generally live in the top of the food chain because if we had no technology, we wouldn't.
Right. But even
die.
4,000 years ago, when we didn't have technology, we were still eating chickens and cows and.
That's subjective because technology is subjective, right? You're saying that domestication, which is a technology,
right?
That with domestication we ate that.
So does technology somehow make it like not fair or wrong or?
Not exactly, but it's part of the idea of speciesism. You're basically looking down on these animals. Right. You're saying these animals, cows, are lower than us. When I don't see that.
Okay.
I think
let's take humans out of the picture for a second. Other animals exist in food chains.
Yes.
Lions eat deer. They have the technology of their their big paws and being able to outrun a deer and hunt it down and eat that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so they don't have the kind of moral compass that we do, right? If you take the concept to say that Yes, lions do that.
Sure.
Great. Lions also eat their babies.
Right.
But we as humans, we say, no, eating babies is wrong.
Okay.
Right? That, like, as a concept.
Sure.
We as humans also say eating animals is okay.
Sorry?
We as humans also say eating animals is okay.
Right. That's part of that's part of the idea.
Why is one intuition wrong and the other right?
What do you mean?
Why is my intuition that eating my child is wrong not also the same type of moral intuition that says eating animals is okay?
That's because we've been essentially not bred, but essentially like we've grown up that way. Society has.
So have we grown up to think eating babies is wrong as well?
Yeah.
So that's purely growing up that way.
That's
and not something inherent about the human mind that tells us not to eat our own children.
I mean, there's cannibalism is like widespread in many cultures.
Name one.
There are like in
There's never been a reported instance of a cannibal culture in human history.
I don't want to get into this because I don't know where you're getting that information from.
You're making a scientific claim. You should have some empirical evidence.
Yeah, there are shown
Name
cannibalism
one.
examples in
Who showed it? Where
in
is
the
this
Americas, in South America, cannibalism and
Okay, let's grant it. Let's say there are humans that are cannibalistic. Like, different people have different standards and do different things.
yes.
You know, there's not like a universal good. And
So the idea is that, you know, we can decide where we stand.
Mhm.
And if we're saying that doing this is right
yeah,
and doing this is wrong, then why are we choosing to kill animals when we don't need to do that?
because they taste good and they're good for us.
So now what we're doing is we're putting our taste buds
Right.
on top on top of the concept of murder. You're murdering these animals,
Right.
and your ethics, like you're non-ethically deciding to eat animals because of their taste
Sure.
versus just in general. Like a great kind of, or a question I always have is, do you eat dogs?
No.
Why?
Because it's not something that's, you know, accepted by society as a normal thing to do.
Right. Society has said dogs
No.
normally in most
Yep.
countries are non-edible.
Sure.
Any carnivorous food is not edible.
What?
If you eat a carnivorous animal, it's not edible. It's not digestible by the human system. It has to be a herbivore. We don't eat any carnivores or omnivores.
That's not what I was talking about.
But a dog eats meat.
Dogs aren't carnivores.
Will eat meat.
Yes.
And therefore, an animal that eats meat is unedible
Okay.
to human beings.
So is that a point?
That's why it's not just a social thing. It's a biological.
I mean, no, it is a social thing. In there's lots of parts in East Asia that still eat.
And the rate of
dogs.
disease as a result of it is much higher too.
Sure. But that's probably partly from domestication as well. You can't necessarily claim that the rate of disease isn't to do with the domestication. Dogs as a food product haven't been domesticated.
Okay, let's take a very idealistic example because I think this will sort of
Yeah, after this we'll go on to the next topic.
this
but
will
yeah.
get your moral stance across to me as clearly as it possibly can get.
Okay.
Let's say you raise a cow in a completely, you know, friendly and ethical manner.
Sure.
It's taken care of, it's brushed, it's fed well.
Yep.
It has a much better life than it could ever possibly have in the wild.
Yep.
And then at the end of its, you know, life, it reaches maturity, and you decide, all right, it's time for me to eat this cow.
Mm.
You kill it quickly and painlessly. It doesn't know what happened,
Mhm.
and then you consume the meat.
Sure.
So, you know, obviously things like factory farming and all this other stuff, it's much easier to find
Yes.
exploitation and
Yep.
wrongdoing there.
Yep.
But in this specific example, it's very hard for me to see it as wrong to, you know, take advantage of the animal.
Okay, so I'll put a couple points to that. So one, the way that we see the world, just like you mentioned, factory farming,
Yes.
that concept, that idea is super unsustainable.
Sure.
So there's no way to sustain the amount of meat that we eat based on that concept. Now, if every person owned a cow or chicken or whatever, and that's what they did, that gets to the point of, yes, they've lived their whole lives, but at the end of their life, you're killing it.
Yes.
They're not in pain. They're not sick. Nothing's
Yes.
wrong, right? We're not talking
And
about...
this establishes your species position as above the cow.
Right. So I believe that killing the animal in any concept doesn't make sense because we don't need to kill the animal. Now, if it dies on its own, that's a different topic.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little... I would still not eat it from a health
But you
perspective.
can see the argument.
I can see the argument
Okay.
From that perspective because
Yeah.
as long as you take care of it, all that kind of stuff, that's a different thing.
Okay.
But to eat the animal and kill the animal, that doesn't make sense to me because I don't see the animal as a product,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I don't like when I visit sanctuaries with cows on them, I look at these cows, I feed these cows,
Right.
and I like connect with them, and I notice their little things, the things they do, the things they love, the foods they love, and I'm like, this animal is no different to me than a dog, and I've been raised as a human in Canada to not eat dogs.
Sure.
So I've associated now the same thing
With cows.
with cows, and so I don't find it at all morally okay to eat it.
So
but yes,
you have this moral principle of we are not above any other living thing.
yes,
And we should not take advantage of it.
yes.
So how far should this sympathy extend? To all living things? Is it wrong to kill a mosquito?
It's a little different. So there are vegans, right? I'm not one of them, but there are vegans that don't kill any insects.
Okay.
They don't kill mosquitoes. They don't kill all that kind of
Right,
stuff.
but you do. And so I'm curious from you.
I do.
How is that different than...
It's hard to say, and that's probably partly me of being still like just not at the level where
Right.
I'm okay with a mosquito like sucking my blood, but it's hard to say. Like I don't know.
The mosquito is exploiting you, so it's okay.
No, not exactly. It's just insects. They don't live in a different domain, and this is kind of like a question that I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Right.
Is somebody posed to me, what if we eat insects instead of meat? What if we replace all our meat with insects? It's more sustainable, blah blah, all that kind of stuff. I think the difference here becomes the idea that insects are not bred. So we are not breeding insects for any purpose.
Okay.
Right? So that's a start. That's already like a good point, right? We're not breeding these animals for a purpose. Now, killing an insect versus an animal that can live, breathe, react, all that kind of stuff is a little different for me. Again, I would say this is probably a point of debate in the vegan community. There are probably vegans who will completely disagree with me.
Mm-hmm.
There are vegans who will completely be on my side, all that kind of stuff. Guide dogs are a debate in the vegan community.
Right.
And it's going to be a debate for a while because it's still an evolving world.
Mm-hmm.
So I put animals that I can interact with and see their eyes and
Sure.
think all that
Well,
kind of
don't
stuff.
you think
on a
that's
different
kind of
level.
specious?
It kind of is.
Right.
Yeah.
But you admit it.
Yeah.
It's just easier to sympathize with a cow than a mosquito.
It is easier. And
Because a cow is cute and you can pet it and
yeah.
feed it some grass.
Yeah.
Whereas a mosquito is kind of like you can't imagine a mosquito having any sort of experience, like anything like what we have.
Yeah. It's also, I may get to a point in my life where I don't kill mosquitoes.
Right.
And like right now I don't kill ants, I don't kill spiders, already.
Right.
And that's already something I've.
It just feels like it can keep going even past mosquitoes. What about like bacteria? Is it wrong to take antibiotics?
So there's a certain, it's not wrong to take antibiotics.
Right.
Health plays a whole different
Sure.
game.
Yeah.
And I mean, all medicine is basically tested on animals, and that's not a point of contention. Like, you should still take those drugs because, yes, in a way, you're still putting your life above other things. Now, the point to say, Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say.
It's okay. We can cut this part out.
No, it's okay. I. What was I gonna say?
We were talking about bacteria and how it can reach a point.
Yes. Oh, so the idea of veganism is to exclude all points of animal hurt, animal torture, to the point that you can.
Mm-hmm.
So, not everyone that's a vegan will be able to, quit their job that maybe is in a bad industry.
Sure.
Not everyone who's a vegan. Oh, it's really raining today on this podcast. Some nice side music, side sounds. Not everyone who is a vegan will have access to deodorants, for example, that are not tested on animals.
Mm-hmm.
In China, you have to test all cosmetics on animals, and there are vegans, I'm sure, in China and in Hong Kong who do as much as they can.
Got it.
And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make is, yes, I kill mosquitoes, but I'm trying to do as much as I can and as much as I want, and I don't want to get an infection from mosquito. I don't want to have a million bites on me, all that kind of stuff. So I'm doing what I can do.
I think a part of it is doing what you can do, but if as a movement, sort of, there's got to be also a more serious effort to make what people can do, like, sort of move forward. So make it more possible for people to do more, right?
Yeah.
And so what's the end goal of something like that? We could all live in perfectly insulated bubbles where nothing around us can possibly get hurt.
Sure.
And no one is ever under any risk of, suffering or being tortured or being exploited. But that seems to me like kind of a, wild dystopian future.
So, there's this great film I watched that came out a couple years ago, and it looks at the perspective of a wild dystopian future.
Mm-hmm.
And it says, what if our world exists and everyone's vegan?
Mm.
That's the viewpoint.
Yeah.
And now everyone shames people who used to eat meat because
Right.
we've been vegan for so long.
Yeah.
And the idea is that it might seem like a dystopian future, but I think that we can get to a point where we are as close as possible to reducing our impact on the environment
Right.
and on animals as much as possible. Of course, maybe not all the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing to note here rather is, again, it's not a form of speciesism to say that animals are different from insects, but they are different to the respect that an animal has feelings and insects don't.
Mm.
As far as we know.
Sure.
If that's the argument, then I can't eat plants,
Mm.
right? Because plants are living things.
Yeah.
But plants don't have any feelings. They
Right.
don't feel sadness. And even if they did, that's already reducing my harm. I'm already reducing my harm as much as possible, and I have to limit myself at some point.
Yeah.
And that's the perspective I've taken, and that's the perspective every vegan has taken, is that they said, this is as much as I can do. I'm going to do all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I won't be perfect. I won't be able to get everything, but this is as much as I've been able to do.
Cool.
All right, now it's time for the question of the day. We talked for a long time there. I'd like to get... Oh, I need to do my sponsor call. Ben, do you like lemons?
Sure.
You don't have to say sure. If you
Lemons are great.
This acidic fruit that makes lemonade. Actually, I had lemonade recently. It was incredibly sour, but lemons are great for many dishes, and in fact, did you know that you can keep your avocados from browning by pouring some lemon juice on them?
Whoa.
That's right. Thank you, Lemons, for sponsoring today's episode, and grab some, at your grocery store, of course. I'd like to get on today's question, Ben. What do you see as a perfect world in terms of food?
Yeah, well, so like I mentioned, I don't really care about my diet too much. So if I could wake up in the morning, take a pill,
Mm-hmm.
and be completely nutritionally taken care of, then to me that would be perfect.
Now, I have a question, because you say that, but then you also say you love the taste of meat.
Yeah, well, so if once a month you know, in 20 years from now when we have these pills. And once a month, I remember back in the good old days when we'd eat a steak or something like that. And I could go to a place that could cook up a nice replica steak in which no animal was ever hurt but tastes delicious, then cool, that would be great. But at least me personally, I'm far less motivated by pleasing my taste buds than in general. I don't really
Okay.
care. If I could not eat food, if I could have a pill in the morning and be taken care of, I'd be completely happy.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I like that. I don't see anything wrong with that viewpoint because, I mean, there are people who like love to eat food and who think food is is an important kind of part of the day. And in some cultures, in some places it is like in Spain, for example, or in Italy.
Yeah, no, for sure.
In France, it's a huge thing. You have to eat. You know, that's how you have conversations. That's how you hang out with people. I think I would probably like try to have a conversation and like eat out like once a day and then take the pill for the rest so I could just get through it.
Yeah.
So I'm on you with that. I like that idea. That's a good idea. Okay, great. I mean, unless you have anything else to say about food in the future.
No, I mean, let's make those pills and get on it, scientists.
Yeah, and you're okay with it being vegan?
Am I okay with the pills being vegan?
Yeah, everything being vegan. Like you said, in which I would go to.
Yeah, I think just on like you know, on a very simple level, like being vegan is a morally superior position.
Okay.
Because you're causing less harm than you otherwise would have. My issue with it is I think there are more important things to prioritize.
Okay.
I think, and this is definitely specious, but I think that it is more important to prioritize reducing the harm you have on other people than it is on other animals.
Okay. Now, I have a question. So, do you know how much of the rainforest gets cut down a year? It's something like I don't remember. It's like millions and millions and millions of acres.
Okay, let's call that a lot.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Most of the cutting down is to grow soy.
Sure.
70% of the soy production goes to feed animals. So do you think, and obviously, I mean, that's obviously kind of down the rainforest is not good for the planet.
Right.
So one of the reasons it might not be good for it is we're, increasing the amount of CO2 production, which harms island states, rising levels of the sea will harm those communities, poor communities.
Sure.
Poor countries.
Sure.
Can you not, please? It's loud. And that's already a step. So that's one thing, as well as like a vegan diet. Like I said, it reduces your harm on the environment. It reduces your methane and your CO2 production.
Right.
So would you consider, like, I'm not saying that that's the only way I'm helping anything, but that's just like that's part of it, right?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
I eat a vegan diet. I donate to charities. There's things I can do, but if this is easy for me, it's a change. It's a big change.
Yeah.
It affects a lot of things. So although there are other things that are just as important, like my clothes and where I buy them, just like you mentioned before, I would say that not that veganism outweighs it, but it contributes to it. So if I eat vegan and I'm careful about what I purchase and what I do and where I donate, all that kind of stuff, I think that I'm doing better versus prioritizing one of the two, because I can do both. I don't see any reason why I would have to prioritize one of the two.
Right. I think I want to be convinced that a big difference can come out of a big proportion of the population becoming vegan, because as you said, it's 1% now.
Sure.
I mean, if you had
depends on the place, but yeah.
If you had a really, really successful year, maybe it doubles up to 2%,
right,
or 3%, because you have podcasts like this and conversations and so forth. But my intuition tells me that in order for there to be a serious difference on a sort of geopolitical, environmental, economic level with things like rainforests, 1 or 2% is not going to really make a difference. And you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you're wrong to do it. Just when it feels like the change you're making is not going to make a difference, I am less inclined to make that change.
So I think what you said there, and I think that's key, is when it feels like that change. And to some people it may feel like it won't make any change, but I notice a change immediately. I mean, not immediately, but I've been noticing a change in a global change, right? So one of the things that's very clear is dairy production.
Right.
Dairy production is down.
Yeah.
It's going down. It's being replaced with nut milk and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there are tons and tons of farms that are going out of business in the States, in Canada, in the UK, all these places that veganism is growing a lot. The UK veganism is way bigger than it is in Canada, and dairy farms are suffering.
Right.
That's already one clear place.
Yeah.
And yes, it will take a long time. It'll be difficult, but the fact of the matter is, when I go to a couple years ago, I went to the grocery store and there was nothing. There was like tofu. I remember looking at this aisle and being like, wow, there's tofu, and there's one company, Yves, so we're having today, and that's the most popular company in Canada. Now I go to like a cheap regular grocery store and there's way more options.
Yeah.
It's very, you can very much see the change. It's coming because the demand is coming. As the demand grows, that change will be seen everywhere. And I can see that I'm helping that, not with my podcast, but with my consumption. I know that my consumption is leading us to a better place, and I'm happy that it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. So, did you know that bell peppers are widely considered to be a very healthy food? These non-spicy vegetables are perfect for fajitas, your quinoa stuffed peppers, and your fresh veggies. They are low in calories and mostly water, so how could they be bad? Thank you, bell peppers, for sponsoring today's episode. Now comes maybe the most interesting part of the podcast, as I always say. We're going to be testing some Yves veggie bologna. It's vegan, cholesterol-free, low in fat. Seems like it's pretty healthy. It actually smells really close to bologna. Ben has never tried this.
Yeah, it does smell like bologna.
I've never tried this. I'm very excited. You're kind of excited?
Let's do it.
All right. So, go ahead and grab it. And we're going to have a guest try it as well. And like I said, this is not a perfect replacement, but it's really good.
Yeah, it tastes pretty close to bologna, kind of rubbery.
I would say the texture is the most off, but I haven't had bologna in God knows how many years. But
this is edible, man.
It's not bad at all.
Yeah,
it's probably the best Yves product I've had, actually, in terms of
good job, Yves.
In terms of the slices.
Ryan, what do you think?
Tastes fine.
And this has been around for a while, so this is only gonna get better in the years to come.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think for me personally, it's not too hard to buy the argument that being vegan is better for the environment. It's better as a moral position. It's better in a lot of ways. I don't personally feel a crazy need to change my diet. I think a lot of the population is like me. I think if someone comes along and makes it very, very easy, just as cheap, and effectively no effort is required on my part to become a vegan, I'll do it.
Now, just because I know you, do you ever buy chicken fingers in the store?
All the time.
Okay, so Yves makes chicken nuggets and chicken fingers.
Yeah,
they're great.
Indistinguishable.
Basically indistinguishable.
Right.
Now, my argument I'm not saying that you have to go vegan.
Of course.
I'm not pressuring you again.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, next time you go to the store, think about it, because maybe picking those up, they don't cost much. I don't think they cost more even. They're probably the same price, and they taste, again, great, and they're actually better for you most of the time. Now, I'm just saying, think about picking that up.
Yeah.
That's what this whole food tasting section of the podcast is about. It's about showing you that, some stuff tastes good, and if you ever buy bologna, now you can buy vegan bologna, and you're contributing less to the environment. You're probably helping your health a little bit, and you know that you're not killing any animals by purchasing this product or any vegan product. So it's just like trying to make those slow, conscious changes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking you to change your diet. Don't do it if you don't want to. But next time you go to A&W, you can consider trying at least the veggie beef burger, or the veggie fake, whatever it's called.
Yeah, I think these kind of alternatives will keep coming out.
Yeah.
I think generally, the human intuition agrees with the vegan position, that we want to hurt animals as least as we possibly can. I think you can think that and still consider humans above other animals on a sort of speciest chain. But I think as alternatives keep coming out, as it becomes easier and easier to choose the product in which no animal was hurt, more and more people are going to start doing it.
Yeah, and I hope that you will from this podcast.
I mean, I don't mind. Let's do it.
Yeah. Now you know what it tastes like. You were scared a little bit. Now you're good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Have you ever needed to bread something? Have you ever needed to put crumbs around your tofu? What about frying crumbs up and throwing them onto mac and cheese? Well, panko breadcrumbs are your crumbs for that. They add that little bit of crisp that many recipes need. Thank you, panko breadcrumbs, for sponsoring today's episode. I cannot speak well today. As a final segment, I've got a recipe for everyone. Before we go there, is there anything you'd like to say, Ben?
No. Thank you for inviting me on the podcast. Thank you for bringing me some bologna. And, yeah.
Did you learn anything?
I learned that it's okay to not be perfect, guys. It's okay to do your best.
So today's recipe comes from Ordinary Vegan, and it's for vegan chicken fingers for Ben. You can get 1 package of extra firm tofu, or you can use vegan plant-based chicken strips like Beyond Meat. You need 1 teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. You can get half a cup of gluten-free panko breadcrumbs, today's sponsor. 2 tablespoons of ground walnuts. If you grind them in a food processor, it's the best. 2 tablespoons of ground flax, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of black ground pepper. Drain and press the excess water out of the tofu and gently with paper towels. Slice the tofu into finger-sized pieces. In a medium bowl, combine the panko breadcrumbs, ground walnuts, and ground flax. Season with a little salt and ground pepper. Add the tofu to the bowl and cover with a breadcrumb mix. Heat the oil in a nonstick pan. Brown the tofu fingers onto each side until browned, and this will only take about 5 minutes. Serve with a mustard sauce or ketchup or whatever you like. And there you go. That's it. Super easy.
I'm going to make that right now.
Do you have tofu?
No.
Yeah. Next time we'll get you some tofu.
Next time.
I'd like to thank today's sponsors, which are lemon, bell peppers, and panko breadcrumbs, Ben, Ryan, and you, the listeners, for being here with us today. You can find Ben on Instagram at Ben ZionB. And do you want to say anything about something coming up?
Sure. In November, I am hosting a conference together with the club that I run called Start AI. If you are an undergraduate student anywhere in Ontario and you're interested in getting involved in the field of artificial intelligence, this is a great conference, so follow me on Instagram and we can talk about it.
Awesome. If you have a question, suggestion, you want to be on a sponsor, or you want to be on an episode, send us an email at veganambitionpodcast@gmail.com. And thank you, everyone, and have a great day.